Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take your sources, your articles, your research, your notes, and distill them into those crucial aha moments and actionable insights you're looking for.
Yeah, saving you time and really getting to the core stuff.
Exactly. Our mission, as always, is to save you time and arm you with the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today we're embarking on a truly fascinating deep dive into what it means to be original, to innovate, and to genuinely move the world forward.
And the source material is just fantastic for this.
It really is. It's the incredibly insightful book, Originals, How Non-Conformists Move the World, by Adam Grant, with a foreword by Sheryl Sandberg. The mission of this particular deep dive, tailored for you from the sources you've provided, is to uncover the surprising truths about how nonconformists actually operate.
Yeah, how they think, how they act differently.
Right, and how groundbreaking ideas are generated and championed, and maybe most importantly, how you can apply these principles in your own life.
To foster creativity, influence, that kind of thing.
Exactly. This isn't just about, famous inventors or revolutionaries. It's about the subtle, everyday choices that lead to breakthroughs.
And the often unexpected traits that drive change. It's really about the psychology of it all.
Let's dive in.
So what's really fascinating here, I think, is Adam Grant's whole approach. As an organizational psychologist, he doesn't present originality as like some innate trait only a few people have.
Which is what we usually think, right? You're either born original or you're not.
Exactly. But he frames it as a set of learnable behaviors and strategic choices.
Yeah.
And that perspective, I think, is incredibly empowering.
Definitely. It opens it up for everyone.
Yeah, he systematically busts these common myths, offering insights that can empower anyone you know, whether you're at home, at work, engaging with your community to make a real difference. The book really delves into the fabric of what motivates people, how we can challenge the status quo.
Without blowing everything up.
Right, without necessarily jeopardizing our career or relationships. It's quite nuanced. So throughout our conversation today, we'll connect the dots between rigorous research, pivotal historical events, and some really compelling modern examples.
To get a really comprehensive understanding of what it takes to cultivate originality.
Exactly.
That's such a crucial reframing because it really does mean originality isn't just for the chosen few.
So where do we even begin to cultivate this? One of the first, most surprising insights Grant delivers is how often we just accept the world as it is.
Without questioning why.
Yeah. He calls it living in an Internet Explorer world. What exactly does he mean by that? How does that tie into originality?
Well, it raises a really profound question, doesn't it? Why do we so often default to what's familiar? Even when it might not be the best path or, the most optimal one.
We just stick with what we know. Right. And Grant illustrates this with a really striking example from a company's customer service reps. This company, kind of on a whim, decided to look at something seemingly tiny. Which internet browser their employees had used when they applied for their jobs.
Okay, that seems totally random.
You'd think so. They assumed zero correlation with performance or anything, but the results were genuinely stunning. Employees who had actually taken the initiative to download and use Firefox or Chrome, they stayed in their jobs 15% longer than those who just stuck with the default browsers.
Like Internet Explorer or Safari. The ones that come pre-installed.
Exactly. The implication isn't about the browsers themselves, obviously.
Right. It's not an ad for Chrome.
No. It's about this fundamental tendency to accept defaults. He found 2/3 of those reps never bothered to change their browser. They just used what was handed to them.
Wow, 2/3.
Yeah. And Grant then extends this observation to much broader societal trends. He draws on political psychologist John Jost's research, just explored how people respond to, undesirable default conditions. And what he found was really perplexing. For instance, African Americans, despite being less satisfied economically, perceived economic inequality as more legitimate than European Americans did.
That seems backward.
It does. And similarly, people in the lowest income bracket were significantly more likely to see economic inequality as necessary compared to those in the highest bracket.
Okay, that's really strange. Why would that be?
Well, maybe the most striking finding was about free speech. When asked about supporting laws that might limit free speech rights if it was deemed necessary to solve national problems, people in the lowest income bracket were remarkably more willing to give up those rights compared to high-income folks.
So the people who arguably might need those rights the most are more willing to give them up.
Exactly. After seeing this pattern over and over, where disadvantaged groups often supported the status quo more than advantaged groups, just concluded something profound. He said, and I'm quoting here, "People who suffer the most from a given state of affairs are paradoxically the least likely to question, challenge, reject, or change it."
Wow. That's quite a statement.
It is. It reveals this deep-seated, often unconscious acceptance of the status quo, even when it's actively harming people.
So the first step to being original is just noticing the defaults and then questioning them.
Precisely. You have to recognize these ingrained defaults and then actively challenge them. Understand that rules, systems, norms, they aren't natural laws.
They're human creations.
Exactly. And because of that, they can be changed. They're mutable. They can be improved.
That's a powerful starting point. Maybe a bit uncomfortable, but powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you start questioning these defaults, how do you manage the risk? Because going against the grain feels inherently risky.
It does, yeah.
Grant introduces this fascinating concept. Why risks are like stock portfolios. What's that about?
This is such a crucial point for anyone thinking about taking a leap, starting something new or pushing a radical idea. The word entrepreneur literally means bearer of risk, right?
Right.
And we have this image of innovators as these bold, fearless risk takers. But Grant shows that pure risk takers don't always win. Actually, a more balanced, maybe even cautious approach often leads to greater success and resilience.
Okay, how so?
He points to this really interesting hybrid path to entrepreneurship study. Researchers tracked over 5,000 American entrepreneurs for more than a decade. They looked at whether people were better off keeping their day jobs or quitting them when starting a business.
What did they find?
The findings were completely counterintuitive. The entrepreneurs who kept their day jobs while building their ventures, they had a 1/3 lower odds of failure than those who just quit and went all in.
Seriously, a third lower.
Yeah. The surveys showed that those who quit were often more confident risk takers. The ones who hedged, who kept their jobs, were more risk-averse, maybe even unsure of themselves.
So being less confident actually helped.
Kind of. The surprising insight is that being risk-averse and having doubts can lead to a more resilient business.
Why? Because you're more careful.
Exactly. You're likely building it with a greater focus on sustainability, longevity. Maybe you have a better plan B because you need one.
That makes sense.
And Grant gives these great examples of successful originals who did exactly this, who played it safe in certain areas. Like Stephen King. He only quit his teaching job a full year after Carrie became a bestseller.
No way.
Yeah. Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, he worked at Pacific Bell for 7 years after the comic strip started.
7 years?
Uh-huh. Sarah Blakely, Spanx founder, worked full-time for 2 years while developing the product. Henry Ford worked for Edison for 8 years after building his first car.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. Even Bill Gates.
Even Bill Gates kept working at Microsoft for 2 years after launching his other big company, Corbis.
That list is truly eye-opening. We picture them just leaping, but they were incredibly strategic. It wasn't recklessness, it was calculated risk.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. It aligns perfectly with this theory of risk by psychologist Clyde Coombs. He suggested successful people balance risks, like a diversified stock portfolio.
Ah, okay. Like in finance.
Just like it.
Yeah.
You offset a risky investment by playing it safe somewhere else. People do this in their lives, too. So if you embrace danger in one area, like starting a business...
You offset it somewhere else.
Right. You're cautious in another domain. Keep your job, maybe drive below the speed limit like Grant jokes. It's about managing your overall risk profile.
Not eliminating risk entirely.
No, not at all. It's about creating a safety net. That gives originals the stability to pursue their big ideas without the constant fear of total failure.
So it's not about being fearless, but being smart about your fear.
Okay.
And speaking of timing, it's not always about rushing in first, is it?
But definitely not.
Grant flips the script on the whole first mover advantage idea and talks about strategic procrastination. This sounds really interesting and, again, counterintuitive.
It totally challenges our usual ideas about productivity, doesn't it? We tend to glorify speed.
Yeah, faster is better. Be first.
But Grant argues that being the first mover is often way riskier than waiting, letting things develop more thoughtfully. Look at the pioneers versus settlers study he mentions. Marketing researchers looked at hundreds of brands.
Pioneers being the first ones in a market.
Right. And settlers are the ones who come in later after the market's established. They found a huge difference in failure rates. Pioneers failed 47% of the time.
Almost half?
Yeah. Settlers, only 8%.
Wow. That's a massive difference. 6 times more likely to fail if you're first.
Exactly. And even the pioneers who did survive only captured about 10% of the market on average. Settlers captured almost 3 times that, 28%.
So being second or third can actually be better. You learn from the first guy's mistakes.
Precisely. The first mover advantage is often a myth. Being a settler can be much smarter strategically. Grant also uses the example of Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah. How does that fit?
Well, the pilot episode was famously hated by test audiences, a show about nothing.
Right, I remember hearing that.
The NBC executives who were really experienced in traditional sitcoms just didn't get it. They were stuck in the old paradigm.
Their experience blinded them.
Kind of. But Rick Ludwin, another NBC exec who was closer to the creative side but still had power, he saw the potential. He saved the show. He had a different perspective, less ingrained, that let him see the originality others missed because they were too experienced in the old way.
Okay, so experience can be a disadvantage sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about strategic procrastination. It's not just laziness, right?
Definitely not laziness. It's a deliberate delay. It allows ideas to incubate, to develop, to absorb new insights. There's this psychological thing called the Zeigarnik effect. Bluma Zeigarnik found back in the 1920s that people remember unfinished tasks much better than finished ones.
Huh. Why is that?
Because when a task is incomplete, it stays active in your mind. It simmers in the background, you know? Your subconscious keeps working on it, making unexpected connections.
So it's like letting your brain chew on it for a while. Intentionally.
Precisely. And Grant uses the amazing example of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Really? How?
King famously didn't finalize the speech until just 4 days before the March on Washington. The night before, he gathered his advisors. His lawyer, Clarence Jones, recalled King saying he wanted to get the best ideas from everyone. This delay, this strategic procrastination, it allowed Jones to benefit from that Zeigarnik effect.
Because the speech was still unfinished in his mind.
Exactly. Jones said later that while comparing his draft to the discussion, something worked its way up from the depths of my subconscious. That led to the powerful, spontaneous I Have a Dream section, which wasn't even in the prepared text.
Wow. That whole iconic part was improvised, basically, because you waited.
Largely, yes.
Yeah.
That delay allowed for deeper thought, new insights, those subconscious connections. It's about letting an idea marinate, not rushing it.
That's incredible. It really feels like the common thread is that speed isn't always the goal for originality. Okay, so you're questioning defaults, timing it right. How do you actually get those breakthrough ideas? Grant says something simple, but maybe hard. Triple the number of ideas you generate. That sounds a lot.
It does sound like a lot, but it's fundamental. So many people make the mistake of having just a few ideas and then polishing them obsessively.
Yeah, quality over quantity, right? Isn't that the saying?
Usually, but maybe not for initial idea generation. Grant shows originality is often a numbers game. Think of baseball. Even the best hitters fail most of the time. Innovators swing and miss way more often than they connect. The more ideas you generate, the higher your chances of hitting a truly novel one.
Like Edison and the light bulb.
Yeah.
Didn't he try thousands of things?
Exactly. Thousands of failures for that one massive success. He knew volume was key. A great modern example is Upworthy, the viral content company. They have a strict rule. Generate at least 25 headlines for every single piece of content.
25 headlines.
Yeah.
For one article or video.
Yeah.
Grant tells this story about a video of monkeys getting unequal rewards, cucumbers versus grapes. The first headline, chosen without the rule, was, "Remember Planet of the Apes. It's closer to reality than you think." It got about 8,000 views.
Okay. Decent.
But then, using the 25 headline rule, they picked a different one. 2 monkeys were paid unequally. See what happens next.
Yeah.
Same video. It got nearly 500,000 views, 59 times more views.
Whoa. Just from the headline.
Just from the headline, found through generating sheer quantity. The content was identical. It shows the broader your initial net, the better your chance of catching something exceptional.
Wow, 25 headlines. That really drives home the point about quantity leading to quality eventually. Okay, so you have this flood of ideas. How do you figure out which ones are the gems? Apparently, our own judgment isn't always great, and neither is feedback from higher-ups. Grant talks about the art and science of recognizing original ideas, and he emphasizes the role of peers. This is such a critical distinction, and it really goes against how we usually evaluate ideas, right? We trust ourselves or we trust the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
But both can be flawed. For self-assessment, the big issue is overconfidence. We naturally love our own ideas. They feel unique. So past failures don't seem relevant.
This time, it's different feeling.
Totally. Grant mentions studies showing entrepreneurs rate their own business prospects way higher, like 8 out of 10, but similar businesses run by others only get a 6 out of 10. It's a clear bias.
We like our own stuff more. Got it. What about managers?
Managers have a different problem. They tend to be risk-averse. Their job often involves stability, predictability.
So they might shoot down a good idea just because it feels too risky.
Exactly. It leads to false negatives. Genuinely, original ideas get rejected because of perceived risk, not lack of merit. They have an interest in the status quo.
Okay, so not ourselves, not the boss who's left.
Peers, your colleagues. Grant argues they often lack the manager's risk aversion, and they don't have the personal investment you do. This gives them a sweet spot. They're open to potential, guarding against false negatives, but also objective enough to spot flaws, guarding against false positives.
Like comedians or magicians valuing peer approval most.
Precisely. They know their peers have the best judgment of actual skill and originality.
So it's about getting opinions from people who are in the creative process, but outside the direct hierarchy.
That's a great way to put it. Researcher Justin Berg did some cool experiments on this. He asked people to predict the success of novel products. One group had to think like managers' first list evaluation criteria. They were only right about 51% of the time.
Barely better than chance.
Right. But another group adopted a creative mindset. First, they spent 6 minutes generating ideas themselves before evaluating. Their accuracy jumped to 77%.
Just from spending 6 minutes brainstorming.
Yeah. Simply generating ideas themselves made them way more open to novelty and better at spotting potential in unusual suggestions. Even when he reversed the order evaluate first, then brainstorm accuracy still climbed to 65%.
So the act of generating ideas primes you to recognize them better.
It seems so. It helps explain why things like Seinfeld eventually get made, despite bad initial feedback. Someone with that creative mindset saw the potential. You see this with Warby Parker's Warbles program, too, their internal suggestion system for tech features.
Right, you mentioned them.
Before Warbles, they got maybe 10, 20 ideas a quarter. After opening it up to all employees, it jumped to nearly 400.
Wow.
And this peer-driven process led to major improvements in their sales and booking systems. Their CTO basically said, our founders are brilliant, but not as brilliant as 200 people combined. It taps into that collective intelligence.
That's a fantastic example. Okay, but this brings up that paradox about experience. It should help, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Grant says it can be a double-edged sword. How does experience hinder recognizing originality?
This is where intuition, which we usually value so highly, can actually trip us up with truly new stuff. Experience builds mental shortcuts, pattern recognition,
Which is usually good.
usually, but it can create tunnel vision that blinds us to breakthroughs that don't fit the patterns we already know. He talks about domain inexperience and hubris. Remember the Segway?
Yeah, the hype was huge.
Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, John Doe, all geniuses in their fields, right? Software, internet, VC. They all thought the Segway would change the world. And they were wrong.
Why?
Because while they were innovators in their own domains, they had zero experience in transportation. Being brilliant in one field doesn't make you a good forecaster in another.
So you need to be a creator in that specific area to judge it well.
That seems to be the key for truly novel ideas. Their enthusiasm for cool tech, plus their lack of transport industry knowledge, led them astray. And this links to intuition versus analysis. For familiar things like an expert judging designer handbags, intuition can be great, even better than slow analysis.
Because their gut feeling is based on tons of past experience.
Exactly. Their unconscious pattern recognition is strong. Overthinking can mess it up. But for unfamiliar things, like the Segway for jobs, intuition is unreliable. You need careful analysis. The Segway was clever engineering, sure, but did it solve a real problem for lots of people? Not really. It was a solution looking for a problem.
A technology push, not a market pull.
Precisely. And Kahneman and Klein's work supports this. Intuition is trustworthy only in predictable environments, doctors, firefighters, chess masters, fields with stable patterns. But in unpredictable fields, stockbrokers, political forecasters' experience can actually mislead you when things change rapidly. Analysis becomes more critical for new ideas.
And Dean Kamen, the Segway inventor.
He was brilliant at solving problems other people brought to him, like medical devices. With the Segway, he started with the cool invention and then looked for a problem it could solve. That's often backwards for creating something truly original and impactful.
That's a critical distinction.
Yeah.
Solving a real need versus just inventing cool tech. Okay, so you've got this great original idea. You've checked its value carefully. How do you sell it? Especially if it's really new. Grant suggests something surprising. Leading with weaknesses. That feels totally wrong.
It feels completely wrong, doesn't it? Goes against every sales pitch rule. We think confidence and positivity sell. But Grant argues that can actually backfire. He uses the example of Rufus Griscom, CEO of Babbel. When he first pitched his company to the board, he was all positive momentum, huge potential.
And they loved it.
Nope. Skepticism, pushback. He said later, unbridled optimism comes across as salesmanship. It seems dishonest somehow. Everyone is allergic to being sold.
Okay. When someone tries too hard, you put your guard up.
Exactly. Your mental shields go up. But leading with weaknesses works for a few reasons. First, it disarms the audience. You reveal a flaw, they relax slightly. They see you're not just trying to manipulate them. You seem more trustworthy, authentic.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, it shows you're smart and have thought things through. You've considered the downsides. That adds credibility.
Right, you've done your homework.
And third, maybe most importantly, it kind of invites collaboration. Instead of presenting a perfect finished thing, you're saying, here's a challenge we need to solve.
It makes the audience feel invested, like potential partners, not just passive listeners.
So you turn a vulnerability into an invitation to help.
Exactly. It's about balanced, honest argument, building trust, not just making a hard sell.
That's clever. Shifting vulnerability into a strength. Okay, so beyond the pitch, how do you get people to actually like a new idea over time? Grant mentions the mere exposure effect. Familiarity helps.
It helps a lot, often unconsciously. Robert Zajon's research showed the more we encounter something, a word, face, brand, idea, the more we tend to like it. It's just how our brains work.
Like that experiment with the nonsense words, iktitaf versus Sarek.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People preferred Sarek just because it had appeared a few times in the text beforehand, even if they didn't consciously notice it. More exposures meant more liking. Familiarity breeds comfort, not contempt.
That's the idea. Unfamiliar things require more mental effort. They can feel vaguely threatening. Repeated exposure makes them feel safer, more comfortable. And this points to a huge problem for innovators. Undercommunication. John Cotter found change agents typically undercommunicate their vision by a factor of 10.
10 times less than needed.
Yeah. Employees are bombarded with information, millions of words. The vision for change might only be a tiny fraction of that. How can they internalize it?
The change leaders are so immersed, they assume everyone else gets it too.
Exactly. So to get people to accept original ideas, you need to speak up about them, then rinse and repeat. Research suggests liking increases with 10 to 20 exposures, maybe even more for complex ideas.
But not just hammering it constantly.
Right. Short exposures, varied, mixed with other stuff to avoid boredom. And crucially, delays between exposures let the idea sink in, build that comfort gradually.
Great practical tip. Repetition and patience. Now this next one is really wild. Turning adversaries into your strongest allies. Grant says converting resistors is more effective than just finding people who already agree. How on earth does that work?
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it draws on Elliot Aronson's work in social psychology. It's counterintuitive, but really powerful. Aronson found we're more sensitive to changes in how people see us than the absolute level. So someone who starts out as a critic, but genuinely comes around to support you.
Their support feels more valuable, more authentic.
Exactly. Aronson said, a person whose liking for us increases over time will be liked better than one who has always liked us. Their conversion feels more rewarding and their support more credible. It shows you really convinced them.
Okay, that makes psychological sense. What else?
Cognitive dissonance. Once someone converts, changing their mind back again would create mental discomfort. To avoid that dissonance, they work harder to justify their new position and become incredibly loyal.
They double down on their new belief.
Right. And third, maybe the most useful part for spreading ideas. Former adversaries are often the best people to persuade other skeptics.
Why? Because they understand the doubts.
Precisely. They weren't yes men. They had the same criticisms and overcame them. This gives them huge credibility. They can make better arguments because they know the counter-arguments intimately. Their endorsement shows the idea can withstand real scrutiny.
That's a fascinating strategy. Prioritize converting critics over just preaching to the choir. Okay, let's shift to challenges inside an organization. Your place in the hierarchy matters, right? This middle status conformity effect. Sounds like a trap.
It really can be. Understanding this social dynamic is vital for fostering originality. Sociologists talk about a conformity curve. Think about it. At the top, leaders are often expected to be different. They have the status, the freedom to deviate without too much fear.
Right, they have leeway.
At the bottom, people often feel they have little to lose. The risk of challenging things is lower, and the potential reward of a breakthrough idea is high.
Okay, top and bottom have more freedom. What about the middle?
The middle, where most people are, is paradoxically dominated by insecurity. You've gained some respect, some standing, and you don't want to lose it.
So you play it safe, follow the leader.
Exactly. You conform to prove you belong and avoid rocking the boat. As one sociologist put it, the fall from low to lower hardly hurts. The fall from middle to low is devastating. That fear stifles originality.
That explains a lot. Grant uses Carmen Medina's CIA story here, right?
Yeah, it's a great illustration. Her first attempt to push for open information sharing when she was lower rank backfired. People saw her as maybe just frustrated, especially as a woman in that environment.
She paid a price for speaking up too soon.
Seems like it. Years later, she tried again, but strategically. She first worked within the system, took a conservative information security job to gain status.
She balanced her risk portfolio again.
Exactly. Cautious career move, still pursuing the original idea. Once she climbed the ladder and her job involved putting info online, people were much more receptive. Her ideas were legitimized by her role and status.
So she earned the right to challenge the system from within.
Precisely. It shows how you can strategically build influence to make space for original ideas.
Very clever navigation. Speaking of alliances, it's not just about shared goals, but, surprisingly, shared tactics. Grant talks about horizontal hostility first, then how common methods build bridges.
Right. It's about how groups connect and sometimes why they don't. Horizontal hostility is that weird animosity within similar groups.
Like the deaf activist protesting the deaf Miss America, or radical environmentalists criticizing Greenpeace.
Exactly. Sometimes groups prioritize internal purity or identity over broader shared goals. Solidarity isn't automatic.
Okay, so what does build alliances effectively?
Surprisingly, shared tactics seem more important than shared values. Sociologists tracked alliances between diverse movements, environmentalists, and gay rights, women's movement, and peace movement. They found that using the same methods, protests, marches, lobbying, was a better predictor of alliances than having the same core beliefs.
Really? How you fight is more important than what you fight for in terms of alliances.
It seems so. If you've both spent years organizing protests, you feel an affinity, a shared identity around the how, even if the what is different. It builds community around action. The historical example is the Women's Christian Temperance Union, WCTU, and the suffragists.
They seem like very different groups, temperance versus voting rights.
Totally different values initially. WCTU was about protecting homes, traditional roles. Suffragists were about justice, equality. But Frances Willard, a WCTU leader, cleverly reframed suffrage. She pitched it using the WCTU's familiar values, protecting homes, religious language. This made the radical idea palatable.
Ah, she found a common language based on their existing values.
Right, and this allowed an alliance based on common methods and that reframed message, which was hugely successful, especially out west. Grant adds nuances too. Alliances work best when groups have some shared tactics, but also unique ones to teach each other, like exchanging petition tactics for parade tactics.
So you learn from each other.
Yeah, and moderate status differences help too. Lower status gets visibility, higher status refreshes its agenda. It's quite strategic.
That's a brilliant take on coalition building common ground through action. Okay, let's shift from groups to individuals again, specifically development. Big myth. Originality comes from being a child prodigy. Grant says, nope, child prodigies rarely go on to change the world. That's huge.
It is a big claim and really important for parents or educators. It challenges that whole idea of genius. He calls it the prodigy paradox. Studies of history's most influential people show many weren't unusually gifted kids, and when you track prodigies into adulthood, they don't consistently outperform less precocious peers.
So being super smart as a kid doesn't guarantee world-changing impact. Why not?
The core problem, Grant argues, is practice makes perfect, but it doesn't make new. Prodigies get incredibly good at mastering existing knowledge and rules.
Playing Mozart perfectly, winning the science fair.
Exactly. They learn to conform to established systems brilliantly. But they don't necessarily learn to be original, to compose their own music, invent new rules. Their focus is on guaranteed success within the current system.
They become masters of the existing game, not creators of new games.
That's a great way to put it. And that drive to succeed, the fear of failure that often comes with being labeled a prodigy, can actually hinder the risk-taking needed for originality. Grant notes many historical originals weren't naturally charging ahead. They had to be coaxed, convinced, or coerced into taking original action.
So originality isn't always this fearless internal drive. It might need a push.
Often, yeah. It suggests originality needs nurturing and encouragement, not just raw talent.
That's comforting for those of us who weren't prodigies. So if it's not that, what does predict originality? Grant points to something surprising. Birth order. He claims later-borns, it turns out, are born to rebel. Is that really true?
It's fascinating, and Frank Selloway's research provides pretty compelling evidence. He found later-borns were twice as likely as firstborns to champion major scientific upheavals. Like, an 80-year-old later-born was as open to Darwin's theory as a 25-year-old firstborn. The odds of that happening by chance were tiny, like less than 1 in a billion.
Wow. That's statistically significant. What about other areas?
Similar results in political revolutions, later-borns twice as likely to support radical change, and even comedy.
Comedy.
Grant looked at Comedy Central's top 100 comics. 44 were lastborns, only 20 were firstborns. They were born almost half a sibling position later than chance would predict.
So younger siblings tend to be more rebellious, risk-taking. Why?
Two main ideas. First, niche picking. Siblings differentiate to avoid direct competition. Older siblings often grab the conventional achievement niches, doctor, lawyer.
Leaving the younger ones to find more original, rebellious paths to stand out.
Exactly. Second, parental influence. Parents might be more relaxed with later kids, give more freedom, explain rules more instead of just laying them down. This fosters more autonomy and questioning.
Like Stephen Colbert being the youngest of 11, with siblings in law and politics.
Perfect example. While we can't change our birth order, understanding it shows how environment shapes these tendencies. We can actively cultivate them regardless.
That birth order stuff is really interesting and maybe explains some family dynamics. Okay, this leads right into parenting. It's not about strict rules, Grant says, but emphasizing values over rules and focusing on moral character. How does that foster originality?
This is super practical advice. Grant contrasts parenting styles. One study found parents of ordinary kids average 6 rules, strict schedules, etc., but parents of highly creative kids, less than 1 rule on average.
Less than 1 rule. What did they do instead?
They emphasized moral values, integrity, curiosity, perseverance, respect. And they gave their kids autonomy to choose activities, pursue interests. And when they did enforce rules, explaining the rationale behind them made teens way less likely to break them. They internalized the why.
So it's about principles, not just regulations, and understanding.
Right. It fosters independent thinking grounded in ethics. Then there's the power of how you praise. Praising kids for being helpful people was way more effective than just praising a helpful action.
How so?
Kids praised for being helpful were much more generous later on. When character is praised, it becomes part of their identity. They see themselves as a moral person.
So instead of thanks for sharing, say, you're such a good sharer.
Basically, yes, will you be a sharer? Rather than will you share. It frames it as identity. And when kids misbehave, focus on how it hurt others. How do you think that made her feel?
To build empathy.
Exactly. Empathy and guilt, which Grant calls the gift that keeps on giving, because it motivates making amends and behaving better. This also motivates adults focusing on victims of injustice spurs action.
Incredibly insightful parenting tips. Shifting from what to do to who to be. Okay, finally, nurturing originality isn't always about parents. Mentors and stories play a critical role too.
Absolutely. This is about aspiration and exposure beyond the family. Grant points out that while parents are crucial, their direct impact on motivating kids to drive big societal change might be less than mentors. That Radcliffe College study. Mentioning a parent as a key influence explained less than 1% of motivation for change later. Mentioning a mentor explained 14%.
Wow, so mentors really lift aspirations.
It seems so. Parents provide the foundation, the freedom, the character. But mentors often show what's possible beyond the conventional. They provide real-world examples of original paths.
In stories. Children's books.
Hugely important. Think about influential originals, citing books like A Wrinkle in Time, Ender's Game, Alibaba, stories about challenging norms, taking initiative.
So the books kids read shape their mindset.
The correlation is striking. Research showed when original achievement themes in U.S. kids' books went up 66% in the early 1800s. The patent rate shot up 7-fold decades later.
Whoa, that's a direct link.
It suggests these stories nurture values of innovation that manifest when those kids grow up. What we read as children can literally shape our tendency towards originality and impact the future.
What a wonderful thought, stories shaping the future.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered individual originality extensively. What about groups? Organizations. Grant calls groupthink the enemy of originality. Polaroid story is the cautionary tale here, right?
It's a classic, yeah. Absolutely crucial for any team wanting to innovate. Groupthink is that tendency to seek consensus, above all else stifling dissent.
Everyone wants to agree, so nobody speaks up with a different idea.
Exactly. Polaroid, once so innovative, failed partly because of this. They clung to the assumption that people would always want physical photos. That belief went unquestioned internally.
Even as digital was emerging.
Right. Edwin Land, the founder, built a culture of intensity and quality, but it lacked ways for authentic dissent to surface. His instant movie camera, technologically cool, but a market disaster.
Because it didn't solve a real need compared to competitors.
Right. It burned $600 million. Land lost control. The lesson. A founder's brilliance isn't enough if the culture doesn't actively invite disagreement.
Irving Janis linked groupthink to big policy disasters too, like Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, Vietnam too. He said when cohesive groups prioritize unanimity over realistically appraising alternatives, bad decisions happen. Harmony trumps critical thinking.
So how do you fight groupthink? It's not just appointing a devil's advocate, right? Grant says you need to unearth authentic dissent. What does that mean?
It's a much deeper approach. Assigning someone to be devil's advocate often doesn't work well. Sheryl Nemeth's research shows they're just playing a role.
So they don't argue very hard,
Yeah.
and others don't take them seriously.
Exactly. They know it's not a genuine belief. Nemeth says, dissenting for the sake of dissenting is not useful, but when it is authentic, it stimulates thought. Her experiment showed when the dissenter actually believed the minority view, the group thought harder, questioned the majority more, and made better decisions. Real conviction matters.
Okay, so how do you get that authentic dissent?
Grant uses Bridgewater Associates, Ray Dalio's hedge fund, as a key example. They built a culture around radical transparency and an idea meritocracy. Best ideas win, regardless of status.
How do they ensure dissent happens?
One way is using canaries, trusted people with diverse views, sensitive to problems, who speak their minds. They're consulted before big changes.
Like the canaries in a coal mine, warning of danger.
Exactly. And they say, our biggest complainers become our strongest advocates. It surfaces real issues, totally different from Polaroid. Bridgewater also encourages thoughtful disagreement. Grant tells a story of a manager challenging a senior leader. Instead of pulling rank, the leader escalated it to a committee of believable people and worked with the manager to turn it into a company-wide case study, forcing everyone to explore different perspectives.
Wow, that's radical transparency.
Dalio believes this creates an efficient marketplace of ideas. Authentic disagreement leads to better outcomes. It's about actively cultivating genuine opposing viewpoints.
It's a truly different way to operate.
Okay, finally, wrapping up. The emotional side. We hear be fearless, but Grant offers practical ways to manage emotions and create a sense of agency.
Yeah, this is about working with our feelings, not fighting them. Fear and anxiety are normal when challenging things, right? Like public speaking feared more than death.
So true.
Alison Wood Brooks found trying to just calm down when nervous is really hard. It's more effective to reframe that anxiety.
Reframe it how?
As excitement, interest, enthusiasm. Your heart's pounding. Tell yourself, I'm excited, not I'm scared. Focus on the positive potential. It redirects the energy.
Turn nervous energy into focused energy. Exactly. And then there's defensive pessimism. Once you're committed, actually thinking about the worst-case scenarios can be useful.
How? Wouldn't that just increase anxiety?
It activates anxiety productively. It motivates you to prepare thoroughly, anticipate problems. By facing the worst, you feel more in control when the actual event happens. You've already peaked in anxiety during prep.
Okay, manage fear by reframing or preparing. What about anger?
Crucial point. Venting anger, like hitting a punching bag thinking about the person who angered you, it actually increases aggression.
So venting doesn't help.
Not that kind. What does help is reflecting on the victims of injustice. Focusing on the person harmed by the unfairness, not just the perpetrator.
That fuels empathy.
Right. Empathy and a drive for constructive action. It shifts focus from revenge to making things right. Speak truth to power, fueled by empathy for the victim.
And finally, urgency.
So important. Cotter found over half of leaders fail here. People stick with the status quo unless they feel change is urgently needed.
Like the Serbian youth movement, Otpor.
Perfect example. They fostered fury with the status quo. Slogans like, it's time, he's finished, that dramatic New Year's concert interruption.
Telling people 2000 is the year.
Yeah. It destabilized the status quo, made the present feel intolerable, and propelled action. To motivate change, you have to show why now is the time, why staying put isn't an option.
What an incredible journey through the surprising world of originality. It's so clear that being a nonconformist isn't about recklessness at all.
No, it's strategic, insightful, even empathetic.
Yeah, challenging so many assumptions, the benefits of procrastinating, the power of admitting weakness. So what does this all mean for you, our listener? What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into Adam Grant's originals?
Well, connecting it all, Grant really gives us a clear roadmap. It's for fostering originality personally and in the groups you influence. It's very actionable.
Okay, let's break it down. What are some key individual actions?
First, question the default. Always ask why things are the way they are. Remember, systems are human-made. They can be changed.
Don't just accept the status quo.
Second, generate more ideas. It's a numbers game. Triple your output, like Upworthy, to find that breakthrough.
Quantity first, then quality.
Third, balance your risks. Hedge your bets. Keep a safety net like the entrepreneurs who kept their day jobs.
Don't put all your eggs in one risky basket.
Fourth, practice strategic procrastination. Let ideas incubate. Don't rush. Give your subconscious time, like MLK did.
Let it simmer.
Fifth, seek peer feedback. Colleagues often give more reliable judgment than bosses or yourself.
Trust the peers.
Sixth, lead with weaknesses. Disarm your audience. Build trust. Invite collaboration by being transparent about flaws.
Vulnerability is a strength.
Seventh, embrace mere exposure. Repeat your ideas patiently, 10, 20 times maybe, short bursts, to build familiarity and comfort.
Rinse and repeat.
Eighth, transform anxiety into enthusiasm. Reframe nervousness as excitement. Focus on the positive potential.
Channel the energy.
Ninth, channel anger productively. Focus on the victim of injustice to fuel empathy and constructive action, not just venting.
Make it purposeful.
And 10th, act with urgency. Convey why change is needed now. Make the status quo feel intolerable.
Create that drive. Okay, fantastic individual actions. What about for leaders building original cultures?
Right. For leaders, 1, run innovation tournaments. Focus idea generation on specific problems. Let peers evaluate. Leverage collective intelligence.
Targeted ideation.
2, hold opposite day. Regularly ask, when is the opposite true? Challenge those ingrained assumptions.
Dig things up.
3, ban, like, love, hate. Encourage analytical reasoning, not just gut reactions. Ask for the why.
Deeper discussion.
4, hire for cultural contribution, not fit. Seek diversity that adds to your culture, brings missing perspectives.
Enrich. Don't just replicate.
5, shift from exit to entry interviews. Capture fresh ideas from new hires before they assimilate.
Get the outside view early.
And 6, cultivate authentic dissent. Value genuine disagreement. Create mechanisms like Bridgewater's canaries. Don't just appoint devil's advocates.
Make dissent real and valued. Great list for leaders. And finally, for parents or educators.
For nurturing original kids, 1, emphasize values over rules. Teach principles, grant autonomy, explain the why.
Principles over prescriptions.
2, praise moral character. Praise being a helpful person, not just the action. Internalize it as identity.
Focus on being, not just doing.
3, explain consequences for others. Build empathy and guilt by showing how actions impact others.
Foster understanding of impact.
And 4, provide mentors and inspiring stories. Elevate aspirations with role models and narratives of original achievement.
Inspire bigger dreams. That's a wrap on our deep dive into originals by Adam Grant. Truly inspiring stuff, challenging so much conventional wisdom.
Yeah, procrastination, weakness, it flips a lot on its head.
Remember, originality isn't about being a lone genius or a reckless gambler. It's about thoughtful, nonconformity, strategic action, even empathy. What stands out to you from this deep dive? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Your curiosity really does make these explorations possible. If you're enjoying what you hear, please consider taking a moment to subscribe, rate, like, and comment on whatever platform you're listening from. It really helps support our channel, helps us get better, and bring you more great content. And if today's deep dive sparked your interest and you're ready to dive into a copy of Originals by Adam Grant, please consider using the link in our description to make your purchase. It makes it easy for you, and it directly supports our channel and the author, allowing us to keep bringing you these explorations. Thanks again for being part of the deep dive community.
And maybe one final provocative thought to mull over after all this. Grant suggests shapers, those who really move the world, are independent thinkers, brutally honest, and crucially, their fear of not succeeding exceeds their fear of failing. So the question for you is, which of those qualities? Independent thinking, brutal honesty, or fearing inaction more than failure? Which do you think is the most challenging to cultivate in yourself? and why? Something to think about. Until next time, keep questioning the default.